I want to ask, in all seriousness, I mean, there is a question of when you get up to those numbers, when it's 15, 16, now it's, 21 people, and you don't have much of a national base. Why did you decide to do this?
The reason I decided to do it is I think we're at risk of being the first generation of Americans to leave less opportunity, not more, to the people coming after us. That's how I feel about our generation. We've had 40 years when 90% of the American people haven't seen a pay raise. We have no economic mobility in this country at all anymore. And I think we really have to restore integrity to this government of ours. This is an exercise in self-government. It's not someone else's government. And the Freedom Caucus and Ted Cruz and now Donald Trump have done a good job of separating, this government from the American people. And it may be, and I think it is in many ways, corrupt and bankrupt and obsolete, and all of which are invitations for us to fix it. You can't just leave it alone. This is how we make decisions. And other countries around the world who are not inconvenienced by our form of democracy, like China, don't have to wait for us to get our act together. So, you think about the 6 months we've spent screwing around with Donald Trump and the wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for. During that period of time, China landed somebody on the dark side of the moon. They're building 3,000 miles of fiber optic cable connecting Latin America with Africa, with China. And we've spent $5 trillion since 2001 on tax cuts for rich people and $5.6 trillion in the Middle East. That's 11 or 12 or 13 trillion dollars that we could have invested in America, invested in the American people to drive our economy for everybody, and we might as well have lit it on fire, is my position. And I think we need to change it.
Do you have as people sort of say, who's, I think to some degree it's like, oh, Cory Booker, he's making his main issue gun control, and, Bernie's Medicare for all, Klobuchar seems to be, infrastructure, Kamala, teacher pay. Is there a Michael Bennet issue right now that you are hanging around?
Well, I actually do think that this restoring economic growth so it reaches everybody in America really is the job that we have to do, because the democracy will not survive with this level of income inequality. It won't. We know that from history, and our income inequality today is the highest it's been in 100 years, the lack of economic mobility I described earlier. So I think there are many things we need to do. That's one. We've got to deal with climate change. We've got to deal with immigration. We've got to deal with infrastructure. As somebody who was a former school superintendent, we need to do a hell of a lot better job than we're doing educating people in this country at every single level. And so... And finally, what I'd say about this is we have to govern ourselves again. We have to learn how to do it. That's not just a Trump problem. We were screwed up before he got there. When I ask people who voted for Donald Trump in my state, why did you vote for him? Almost always they say, we wanted to blow the place up.
Yeah.
And so I say to them, congratulations, you achieved what you wanted to do, but what are we going to do now? And, when I think about how much wasted time there's been in the Senate, the 10 years that I've been there, the waste of opportunity for the next generation of Americans and the generation after that. When this country was founded, it was not founded on the expectation that we would agree with each other. It was founded on the expectation that we would disagree with each other. That was the whole point of living in a republic, or now what we call a democracy. And we got to get back to a place where we're disagreeing, but using that disagreement to fashion more durable and more imaginative solutions than any king or tyrant could ever think of themselves. And that's going to require a lot more out of us as citizens and a much higher expectation of what our elected leadership should look like in D.C.
You mentioned imaginative solutions. I do want to bring it back to Colorado before we go. Is it true that magic mushrooms are going to be legal in Colorado?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think that our voters just voted in Denver to do that. And I don't know. I think they might have thought that we were out of marijuana all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So
well, they're worried they're going to be.
And by the way, we're not out of marijuana in Colorado.
Well, that's what it says on the state flag now, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Best of luck.
You let me come.
Senator Michael Bennet, everybody.